As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, orange glow across the city, David's heart raced with anticipation. He had an inkling that something was amiss in his relationship with Emily. They had been dating for 3 years, and everything had seemed perfect until recently. David's gut told him that she might be seeing someone else behind his back. Unable to shake off his suspicion, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He knew he had to get to the bottom of this, even if it meant confronting his worst fears. Emily had always been an enigmatic personality, which had initially attracted David to her. Her love for adventure often kept their relationship exciting, but lately, it had also sown seeds of doubt. David decided to surprise Emily by showing up at her apartment unannounced. He hoped that his surprise visit would either put his fears to rest or confirm the terrible truth. On the way to her apartment, he rehearsed what he would say, reminding himself to stay calm, rational, and composed, no matter what he discovered. When he reached her building, his heart pounded in his chest. He ascended the stairs to her floor, trying to control his breathing. Outside her door, he could hear muffled voices. His pulse quickened as he pressed his ear against the door. What he heard made his blood run cold. Emily was laughing, her voice filled with an intimacy that he hadn't heard with him in months. She was definitely not alone. With a trembling hand, David turned the doorknob and entered the apartment. What he saw was worse than he could have ever imagined. Emily stood in the middle of the room, wrapped in another man's arms. Their lips were locked in a passionate kiss. The room was filled with their hushed laughter and whispered sweet nothings. Time seemed to stand still as David's world shattered around him. He couldn't believe his eyes. The man quickly released Emily when he saw David. "David. I can explain." Emily stammered, her face flushed with embarrassment. The stranger, clearly as stunned as David, muttered an apology and headed for the door. David's anger was boiling over, but he held himself back from confronting the man. He needed to hear Emily out first. "Explain? Explain what, Emily? Who is he?" David asked, his voice quivering with a mix of anger and hurt. Emily hesitated before saying, "This is Alex. He's just a friend, David." David couldn't believe what he was hearing. "A friend? Friends don't kiss like that, Emily." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, and her voice quivered as she said, "I know, David. I'm so sorry. It's just that I've been feeling distant from you, and I didn't know how to tell you." David felt a lump in his throat. He had sensed the distance growing between them, but he never expected her to betray their relationship in such a way. "Emily, you could have talked to me. We could have worked through this. Cheating was never the solution," he said, his voice filled with disappointment. Emily wiped away her tears and nodded. "You're right, David. I messed up, and I'm so sorry." As David stood there, he realized that he couldn't be in the same room with her any longer. He turned and left the apartment, his heart heavy with grief and anger. He wandered the streets, aimlessly trying to make sense of the betrayal. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions, and he didn't know what to do next. Hours passed, and David finally decided to call his best friend, Mark, for support. Mark had been with him through thick and thin, and he needed someone to confide in. Mark listened patiently as David recounted the painful events of the evening. He was shocked and furious on David's behalf. "I can't believe she would do this to you, David. You deserve so much better," Mark said. David appreciated his friend's support, but he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and heartbreak. He had invested so much in the relationship, and now it seemed to be crumbling before his eyes. The next few days were a blur for David. He confronted Emily, and they decided to take a break from their relationship to figure things out. David had trouble sleeping and eating. His mind was consumed by thoughts of Emily and the other man. He decided to do some soul-searching and reached out to a therapist to help him navigate the complex emotions he was experiencing. The therapy sessions allowed David to express his pain and frustration, and he slowly began to understand that Emily's actions were a reflection of her own struggles. He also realized that he needed to take care of himself and rebuild his life, regardless of the outcome of his relationship with Emily. David reconnected with old friends and family members, who provided much-needed emotional support. He threw himself into his work, hoping that the distraction would help him heal. Time passed, and he received a call from Emily. She wanted to meet and talk about their relationship. They met at a park, and the conversation was emotional and raw. Emily admitted her mistakes and her desire to make amends. David was torn. Part of him still loved Emily, but he couldn't ignore the pain she had caused him. After much deliberation, they decided to give their relationship another chance, but it would be a rocky road to rebuilding trust. David made it clear that there would be no more room for lies or betrayal. Their relationship had to be based on open communication and honesty. In the months that followed, Emily made a genuine effort to regain David's trust. They attended couples therapy to address the issues that had driven them apart. David, too, worked on himself, learning to forgive and let go of the pain. It was a long and difficult journey, but he believed in the possibility of a fresh start. As time went on, their relationship did improve. The wounds began to heal, but there would always be scars, reminders of the pain they had both endured. David's trust in Emily gradually returned, but he remained vigilant, never fully letting his guard down. He also recognized the importance of maintaining a life outside of the relationship, nurturing his own hobbies, interests, and friendships. Years passed, and David and Emily's relationship evolved into something stronger. They had learned from their mistakes and built a foundation of trust and understanding. Their love was tested, but it had grown deeper, and they cherished the bond they had rekindled. David realized that sometimes relationships faced adversity, but if both partners were willing to work on it, they could come out stronger on the other side. He had learned that communication was the key to a healthy relationship, and he and Emily were now open and honest with each other. They created new memories together, traveling, exploring, and building a life that was more resilient.